51 years before the United States ratified the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote and hold office, Wyoming Territory gave full suffrage to women. On December 10, 1869, Wyoming triumphed to stand firm for the women. The nation had tragically fallen short. As a triumph, the Wyoming Territory won its suffrage 24 years before any other state won theirs. Wyoming was a pioneer in this fight for their suffrage as they settled the West. Once Elizabeth Cady Stanton declared, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all women are created equal." Women believed this, and that is why they fought for their rights.
Since Andrew Jackson's presidency in the 1820s, women fought for their suffrage. In 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified, giving men the right to vote. Tragically, the women who had fought for the voting rights of other races were not included in this amendment. Some people even said that women's suffrage was a joke. Many men believed that by letting other races vote, they should let the women vote too. One politician even said, "If you let the niggers and pigtails vote, we will bring in the women too."
Women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton did not give up easily. They spoke at rallies, demanding full suffrage.
There shall never be another season of silence until women have the same rights as men have on this green earth.
Did I not feel that the time has come for the questions of women's wrongs to be laid before the public? Did I not believe that women must do this work for women? Alone, understand the height, then the depth, the breadth of her degradation.
In addition to this, Susan B. Anthony vowed, "There never will be complete equality until women themselves help to make laws and elect lawmakers." Women knew they deserved their rights for many reasons. First, because they followed the laws, therefore they should help make the laws. Laws affected women just as much as they affected men. Second, they deserved their rights because it is for the common good of all. Third, they knew it was possible for individual states to grant female suffrage, so why not nationwide?
When the railroads opened to the Wyoming Territory in 1869, President Ulysses S. Grant named John A. Campbell the governor of the Wyoming Territory. The first elections in the Wyoming Territory were held in September 1869. William H. Bright, president of the Council of the Wyoming Territorial Legislature, presented a women's suffrage bill on November 27th at the legislature's first session, which would grant women over the age of 18 the right to vote. The bill was quickly amended and quickly signed by the Republican governor, John Campbell.
The law finally cleared the way for female suffrage. An act to grant to the women of Wyoming Territory the right of suffrage and to hold office be it enacted by the Council and House of Representatives of the Territory.
Section 1. That every woman of the age of 21 years residing in the Territory may at every election to be holden under the laws thereof cast her vote.
Approved December 10, 1869.
Reactions to the bill were mixed. Some of the men thought it would be a good joke to pass a bill. Others thought it would be right and just to give women the vote. Others thought it would be a good advertisement for the territory, so that they could become a state. Another man said he just voted to please someone else. The reasons why men agreed to grant women's suffrage weren't the right reasons. They granted women's suffrage to gain publicity for the Wyoming Territory to entice settlers, so that Wyoming could eventually become a state, and to tame the West, not because they believed women deserved their rights.
With the new rights in the Wyoming Territory, women were finally equal with men. This meant that they could vote, hold public office, and get paid the same as men. When the first elections were held, Miss Louisa Swain was the first woman to vote on September 1870. Although Louisa Swain was the first woman voter in the United States, that wasn't the only triumph in Wyoming. In 1870, Esther Hobart Morris became a Justice of the Peace, making her the first woman to hold a public office. In 1894, Estelle Rill became the first woman in the United States elected to a state office as Superintendent of Public Instruction. The first woman state legislator was Mary Bellamy in 1910. The first woman to be elected as mayor was Susan Whistler in 1911. And the first woman elected as governor was Nellie Taylor Ross in 1925.
Another native Wyoming lady, Grace Raymond Hebert, went to the University of Iowa and was the first woman to receive a doctorate in science. After that, she moved back to Wyoming, where suffrage leaders were extremely proud to hold her as an example of the capabilities of women and why they deserved equal suffrage. They acclaimed Dr. Grace Hebert as demonstrating the finest type of American womanhood. Then, in 1891, Grace Hebert appointed herself librarian of the new college at the University of Wyoming. During Wyoming's bid for statehood 21 years after it had granted women rights, the Wyoming Territory threatened to take away these rights because they could not enter statehood while also allowing women's suffrage. Men in Wyoming did not want to enter statehood without their women. Teresa Alberta Jenkins did not like it either, so she got in her buckboard and she rallied the women in Cheyenne by riding all over the town urging the women to go to the Capitol before the legislators voted on it. But she didn't get to go because her efforts put her into labor with her third child, Agnes Wyoming Jenkins.
In a telegram sent to Delegate Joseph M. Carey, the legislator demanded that he stand firm for the women. We'll wait 100 years if need be. We'll not come in as a state without the women. Following a heated debate, Wyoming triumphed by becoming the 44th state and maintaining the rights of women. With Wyoming just being granted statehood, the big celebration for becoming a state was held on July 23, 1890. In honor of her efforts to save women's suffrage in the state, Teresa Alberta Jenkins was asked to give a speech. In her speech, she celebrated their triumph by stating,
Bartoldi's Statue of Liberty enlightening the world is fashioned in the form of a woman and placed upon a pedestal carved from the everlasting granite of the New England hills. But the women of Wyoming have been placed upon a firmer foundation and hold a more brilliant torch.
In 1888, Teresa Jenkins replied to an article that defamed a woman, published in Popular Science Monthly by Professor Cope. His article was called The Relation of the Sexes to the Government. Mrs. Jenkins angrily replied,
I wish that women everywhere would study the one argument that can be brought against women's suffrage. It is this: woman may reform man. He has shown us clearly that he will not reform himself. Now, unless woman will interest herself in this reformation, she has no business with the ballot. So far, woman has done as well as man in the use of the ballot. She has done no better, but she can if she will. Man has no right to expect woman to take up issues that he ignores, nor has he any right to withhold the suffrage for fear she will do so. But woman, in asking for the ballot, ought to say to man, we will make better use of it than you have. This is the ground on which we must demand the suffrage, not the use of the ballot simply to make our own importance greater, but the ballot as it could be used to raise politics out of its filthiness, corruption, and ignorance, and to bring in the reign of purity, patriotism, and intelligence.
After Wyoming became a state in 1890, Teresa Jenkins continued to travel throughout the West, Colorado and Montana, urging states to adopt women's suffrage. Later, she would travel to the East Coast speaking to women's groups before the 19th Amendment was passed. Teresa Jenkins was even invited to speak in Europe for women's rights.
Wyoming's triumph in granting women's rights led the way for the nation. Wyoming in 1869, followed by Colorado in 1893, and Utah and Idaho in 1896. Eventually, women triumphed in the United States in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment. John Morris, husband of Esther Hobart Morris, stated, "It is a fact that all great reforms take place not where they are most needed, but in places where the opposition is the weakest, and then they spread."
So, in your opinion, what was Teresa Jenkins' greatest triumph or impact on women's suffrage?
I think that the fact that she visited so many states and gave the women a chance to be able to express what they wanted to do in the future.